Okay, he joins us to talk about a host of issues. What's happening on the Korean Peninsula, which could lead to nuclear war. I mean, that's all over the headlines. Israel saying they may go into Iran sooner rather than later. That's back on the front burner. Is there a Fox Fallon to stop it? What will Admiral Mullen do? You've got this global financial meltdown happening. You notice world wars always start during a major global meltdown. There's a method to this madness. I also want to ask him later about CIA units' wacky idea to depict Saddam as gay. That's not the issue. Buried in the Washington Post article, they quote the CIA officers as producing fake bin-laden videos. Now, people have looked at the video of the fat bin-Laden, admitted it's fake. They've had linguists listen to it. It's not him, not the dialect. They've done voice print. These tapes are basically all fake or old tapes of him re-edited. I want to ask Ray McGovern about that. We're going to get into suddenly New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, Fox News, Geraldo Rivera with the Marine Corps commander. We're here helping the Afghans grow the opium. We have to or Al-Qaeda will get the opium. I mean, folks, they're really coming out in the open. Yeah, we put out fake bin Laden tapes. Yeah, we're growing the smack. Yeah, we left the POWs. Pulitzer Prize-winning reports are now getting a lot of news on that front. So we'll talk about it all. Ray McGovern was in Vietnam, by the way. So we're going to cover it all in the next hour with him today. Ray McGovern is an activist who writes and lectures all over the country. He's co-founder of Veterans Intelligence Professionals for Sanity. And we really appreciate him joining us. He was one of the chief CIA briefers for Reagan and Bush Sr., and that's a key position in a focal point position where you have Pentagon liaison to CIA, you have CIA liaison to White House. These focal officers like Fletcher Prouty and the secret team again, have unique perspective on wide-ranging analysis and how it ties in, not just specialists, so they can draw on all the specialists. And so that's why it's such an important lens to have him on with us. So I've thrown out there, sir, what I want to cover with you in the next 50 minutes. You've got the floor with what of that cornucopia you think is most important in your breakdown on what we're facing.
Alex, thanks. First, just to make sure the record is correct, I don't want to pull a Blumenthal from Connecticut here. I didn't serve actually in Vietnam. I was an Army Infantry Intelligence Officer from 62 to 64 before Vietnam really started. And while it was going on, I was the principal analyst at the CIA for Soviet policy toward Vietnam. So I learned quite a bit about it, but I never set foot in the country. With respect to what's going on here, the most important thing that's happening today is that David Obey, chair of Appropriations in the House, is letting some lipstick go on the $33 billion appropriation for escalating war in Afghanistan. And that lipstick is $23 billion for teachers so that they don't lose their jobs. Obey knows better. What he's done here is bowed to the Washington establishment that want to continue this war. It looks very much as though what he will report out of his committee this evening is a bill that includes $23 billion for teachers to keep the schools going and $33 billion for Afghanistan to keep that feckless war going and more and more people being killed. It's just really, I was a former admirer of David Obey, and so I wrote him a memorandum that is appeared already on AfterDowningStreet.com. I guess it's now called WarIsACrime.org. And you can see that he's being completely disingenuous because as recently as 2 months ago, he told a TV interviewer that this Afghanistan adventure, it's a fool's errand. But if we're going to do it, we have to pay for it. We have to fully fund it. Now, what kind of logic does that make, Alex? It's a fool's errand, but if we're going to do it, we got to fund it.
Well, Ray McGovern, let me throw this out at you, and then you can expand on your concern with what's happening in Afghanistan, expanding into Pakistan.
Sure.
But in layman's terms, I'm somebody who sits there and studies it for years, and so I want your perspective, and correct me if I'm wrong. You've got all these pipelines going through there, trillions in the aggregate of oil, hundreds of billions in no-bid contract black holes. So the defense lobby likes it. The oil lobby likes it. Israel likes it because, that gets the U.S. more firmly burrowed into the Middle East and Central Asia. So that lobby likes it. But more importantly, $500 billion a year, 91% now. It was a lot lower of the opium pouring out into Russia, into Asia, kind of a replay of the Boxer Rebellion, part 2. And now our troops are admittedly over there, quote, protecting the poppy fields. And so I think you've got at least the contractors that's come out. That's what Sybil Edmonds said pre 9/11, shipping the opium into Turkey, you name it. And so it's really about narcotics. And so people look at the policy and say, why are we there? Well, we're really there because Black Ops likes $500 billion.
Well, that's part of it, Alex, to be sure. The other part is a more kind of geopolitical adventure here. Imperialism is not dead. If you look at Afghanistan, you'll see that it's strategically located in the same neighborhood as China, as Iran, as Russia, really, as Turkey, Iraq. It's right there in the middle of things. And so the way the empire looks at things is, well, we got to be in there firstest with the mostest, even if it's mostly an attempt to deny the Chinese or the Russians or the Indians or whomever from getting in there before we were. Now, what makes Afghanistan strategic? Well, one of the things that makes it strategic is that it lies directly beneath a country called Turkmenistan, which used to be part of the Soviet Union, and Turkmenistan has in it natural gas deposits worth all the oil under the sands of Iraq. Now, the problem is Chevron's in there, a lot of the oil companies are in there, natural gas companies, but you can't get it here from there, okay? You got to do a pipeline, and you can't have that pipeline go through Russia. You have to have it go south. And guess what the next country is Afghanistan, and then Pakistan, and then a little slice of India. And at the terminal of this projected pipeline, all the studies were done and was ready to go. Guess what? Enron was supposed to be the person marketing that natural gas. So the whole thing is as corrupt as can be. The Taliban visited Houston, Texas, when Governor George Bush expressed interest in what was going on there with this pipeline. Our ambassador to Afghanistan and later to Iraq, Khalid Zad, was one of the people involved in this, and so was Karzai.
Yeah, he was the Unicol executive.
Yeah. So that's part of it. Now, I'm not saying that's the whole thing. The whole ball of wax involves the strategic location. And what needs to happen here, Alex, in my view, is pretty simple. There's a finite amount of oil. There's a finite amount of natural gas in this world. Now, if we're going to try to seize it all or seize control of it, then Iraq can be looked on as simply the first resource war of the 21st century. What we have to do is what my 4-year-old grandson learns in nursery school. I went up and I asked his teacher, "What do you expect to teach these kids?" And she said, "Oh, that's simple. We teach them that they have to learn to share. A certain amount of toys on the table, they have to learn to share because there's a finite amount of things." And I said, wow, there it is. Cheney, Bush, even now Obama, they never went to this nursery school for sure. What has to happen is we get together with the Chinese, the Indians, and other people who need that oil and gas, figure out how to share it.
And jointly develop it instead. I mean, we go back to 53. That's what caused the whole Iran thing, as you know. Mohammed Mossadegh said we're going to keep 25% of our own money to American oil companies and British oil companies. And they said, no, we get everything. We overthrow you using the Muslim extremist. I mean, it's the same story every time.
That's right. Well, that was a company called BP, actually, which I think has been in the news lately. You get a corrupt enterprise like British Petroleum, which controlled all the oil in Iran prior to the revolution in 53, and if you let them persuade you to overthrow the governments there, now then as night follows the day, they will be filled with the uncontrollable hubris that they've demonstrated now in the Gulf of Mexico, and the people of the world, the simple people like you and me, Alex, have a real problem.